Hello, welcome to the Content Crook channel. I'm Content Crook, and today we'll be exploring about the retro nostalgic graphics in video games such as the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 1. Today we'll be exploring how those retro low poly graphics are nostalgic. First, we're going to be talking about what makes a game nostalgic. We have to go play like the old games from the Nintendo 64. Like you could say the Game Boy games are pretty nostalgic for the people who played it back in their days. But for me, it was the Nintendo 64. When the Nintendo 64 came out, I have never seen these kind of graphics before in my whole entire life, because the only games I've been playing were pure Game Boy games, and once the Nintendo 64 came out, those graphics were extraordinary. Like, look at Super Mario 64. Like, look at Mario over here. Look at this boy over here. Like, god damn. Like, look at the graphics in this Mario model over here. It looks pretty cool from its time. Oh yeah, and let's talk about the PS1 games. Let's talk about the PlayStation 1. When the PlayStation 1 came out, although all of their games look pretty good, all the graphics and everything, from a lot of good games on the PlayStation 1, from Crash Bandicoot. When you play Crash Bandicoot, all of those games were pretty good. Like, look at Crash. Like, when you look at Crash, whoa! Oh my god, look at that. Look at that crazy dude. Oh my god, look at that guy. I love him. Look at those graphics. That game was pretty extraordinary from its time, but not as extraordinary as Metal Gear Solid. When you play as our boy Solid Snake, when he's trying to go to Shadow Moses, when you look at those graphics, oh my god, you can't even see Solid Snake's face. Mostly everybody in Metal Gear Solid, you can't even see their face. In Metal Gear, like when you look at Solid Snake, Ocelot, Meryl, or Gray Fox, you can't even see their face properly. Like, all you could see from their faces are pure pixels. And that's the thing I miss about these type of games during the PS1 era, is because of their pixels. Like, when you look at their face, it could be pixels or low poly, and that's the thing I miss about these games. And then when you go to Gran Turismo, like, those games look good. Like, when you go play Gran Turismo, like when you're driving, oh my god, those were the best graphics I have ever seen in a racing game. That's why people still play Gran Turismo, because when they first played on the PS1, they never seen such good graphics in a racing game. Let's talk about Twisted Metal. Now that's a racing game I really want to talk about. It's considered to be a racing battle royale kind of game. When you play Twisted Metal, the first Twisted Metal, you look at the graphics, oh my god, you play as a little RC cars. Those graphics were pretty good, like from Sweet Tooth. And then when you look at the weapons in Twisted Metal, oh my god, all you could see are low poly explosions, low poly graphics into those suckers. From the rockets, from the items, from the bombs, oh my god, those games really had those retro feeling to them. That's why people still play these retro games till this day. Oh, and let's not forget about Tekken. Once they started playing Tekken 3, oh my god, that was the end of 3D fighting games. That was the beginning of transition to 3D to Ultra 3D. Like, Tekken 3 was considered to be the best fighting game on the PS1. That's why people still love Tekken, because when they first played Tekken on the PS1, they fell in love with it. When they played Tekken 3 on the PS1, they fell in love with the characters, they fell in love with the moveset, they fell in love with the story. But let's not forget about the backgrounds. The backgrounds and the music. The music in the backgrounds were pretty bangers. All over the world, people heard Tekken music, and they're pretty bangers. Even the third and the second one, they're considered to be beloved by the fans of Tekken. And those are the type of games on that came on the PS1. Oh, and let's talk about The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Oh my god, when that game first came out, oh my lord, those graphics look amazing. Oh my god. Like, if you go see Ganondorf's face, oh my god, it looks pretty good. It looks low poly, but you can still see his face. From the world building, from the stores, from the sky, from the mountains. You can see everything over there. Oh my god. That was the first Zelda 3D game that came out, and people consider it to be the best one of the franchise. Same as Majora's Mask. Those two remain to be the best ones in the franchise. Like because of the graphics, because of the music. Oh my god, once you hear Saria's music, oh, it's a pretty banger. You just dance. Like, look at me dancing to it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, the N64 era had these banger music. In The Legend of Zelda, they have a lot of banger music. Even the characters, there are some characters that you fall in love with them, like with Zelda, Link, Ganondorf, the Gerudos, and the Hyrule people. Oh my god, there is a lot of characters into those games. People praise it for being the best one in the franchise. And when you go and look in Majora's Mask, they felt the same way too, because of the gloomy, spooky feeling of the game. Like, the graphics were the same as the Ocarina of Time, but they had a lot of new stuff to it. It had a new story, had a new plot, and it had a lot of new characters into those games, and new abilities. But the cool thing about these games were the backgrounds, because when you go and travel to these different areas in Majora's Mask, from the ocean to the snowy mountains or through the forest, oh my god, there was a lot of good scenery from these backgrounds in these games. Oh my god, and let's not forget about the graphics, those sweet graphics. Oh my god, look at this. I could just vibe to this. Put some lo-fi music in the background and we could just vibe. Like, look at this. Oh my god. Oh yeah, this is the power of nostalgic graphics in video games. Look at these graphics. They look amazing. Like, oh my god, I could just be sleeping right here, right now. I could just be sleeping here every day. I could just spend my whole entire life in these graphics. And that's the cool thing about playing these games. It's about the feeling that you enjoyed these games when you were little, or you still play them because you enjoy playing them. That's the whole point of playing these retro games. If you play Super Mario 64, you look at the graphics from that time, it looks pretty cool because they're pretty blocky and pretty, standard. But when you go play the Nintendo Wii or the PlayStation 2 or any other new consoles, the graphics just look pure new and better than the old graphics from that era. Are you there for the graphics? Are you there for the story? There's so much to tell on what you love about the game. But for me, it was about the graphics and the story. But once you start playing like the older games, like Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and the other newer Legend of Zelda games, they all look the same. They all look better quality. They look pretty bland. When you go back and play Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, you see how they look, and they look pretty good. They look low poly. They look polished. They look like pretty danky. They look pretty danky, but that's the thing that I really like about the N64 era. Like, they look pretty good from its time. They look pretty danky for their low poly fractures, their low poly models. When you play Banjo and Kazooie, when Banjo and Kazooie came out, it was pretty cool. Like you get to collect puzzles. When you collect puzzles, when you look at the items, I like how it looks. And plus, when you go to Instagram or TikTok, there's fewer creators that are trying to develop the old graphics from the old low poly nostalgic graphics from the PlayStation 1 era, from the Nintendo 64 era. They're trying to recreate that. They're trying to recreate that that image. They're trying to recreate that nostalgic feeling and putting it into their videos. And you see a lot of creators right now trying to recreate those graphics from the N64, from the PlayStation 1, and so many more. Like there's one over here. There was a lot of good things about that low poly nostalgic era of video games, and that's why me and the whole community that love this stuff, we all trying to make our own way of saying how much we love it. Like we're trying to show people how we miss these old graphics in video games, and that was pretty cool. But for me, the best game that's really nostalgic for me is Doom, because when you look at Doom, I really like the crunchy, chunky, low poly feeling when you're playing that game. Like when you stab demons, you could hear the crunch sound once you shoot the demons. Like you could feel it. And then when you look at the whole entire world, when you're walking around in the whole entire world in Doom, you just look and see how everything looks. Like when you look at when you look at the sky, you look at the mountains, you look at the buildings, everything looks good because of the graphics. Like, and then when you go play like Doom 64, it's still the same low poly nostalgic graphics. When you play it, you still got that feeling of old Doom. Like, oh my god, this is like Doom, but better. Kind of miss the old nostalgic graphics in those games. In the PlayStation 1, it came out kind of the same time as the N64. And when those two consoles came out, they were both the same. They were both low poly, they were both low graphics, and they were both good looking for its time. Once Nintendo and PlayStation kind of grew as a company and they started making newer consoles, the feeling of playing those games kind of went away, because now we started playing newer games, and those newer games became more advanced. It had more story, had more dialogue, it had a lot of things into it. But sometimes we do miss the feeling of playing the old games from the PlayStation era and the Nintendo era, like the N64 and the PlayStation 1. Thing I miss about the Nintendo 64 were the cartridges. Like when you grab it and you blow on it to clean the dust, and you put it back in and you turn it on, and you start playing Mario Kart 64. That was like the greatest feeling to have, like to play those games. And then right now, you could go and explore these type of games again, but these games are really hard to find, or these games are really hard to spend on. They're selling it for a lot of money, and these are old games that people still play to this day. People still want to go play Majora's Mask. People still want to play Mario Kart 64. People still want to play Banjo and Kazooie. People still want to play Diddy Kong Racing. There's a lot of games that people still play to this day, and right now they can't even get it, because right now in the video game market, they're trying to take away all of your money just for that single game, which is really old, and you could still get it for a lower price. But in the video game market, nobody cares about that. All they care about is money. That's the downside of being, trying to play these old games. It's because of the video game market. When you were born in the 2000s and you played those consoles and video games, you kind of miss it. That's why Nintendo and PlayStation started bringing back their old games into the consoles. Like when you look at the Nintendo Switch, now if you pay for the online, now you get to experience the games that people played back in the days. Now you can experience and play the Game Boy games, the Super Nintendo, the NES games, and the NES games. All the games that Nintendo has made back in the days. Now they are importing that game. Now they're importing those games into the console. So if you try to play these games, or you try buying these games, now you have the opportunity to play these games in the consoles. People still care about playing these old games. I still care about playing old games too. There's a lot of people who still care, and the only thing I came here to talk about was these nostalgic graphics in video games, because of these nostalgic graphics in video games, it changed the world of gaming. It changed the world of gaming graphics from being a low poly model to now becoming a realistic figure. But let's not forget, the nostalgia games will always be part of our hearts and will always become one of the best graphics in video game history. And look at the graphics though. I will just leave you off with these graphics. Oh my god, look at the world, look at the background, look at the music. So amazing. Oh my god. And this has been Content Crook. Thank you for watching this video, and hit that subscribe button, and we'll be talking about more things to talk about. Thank you.